Hi, this is Cora Stack here. Sorry, I'm just listening to my favourite Van Morrison songs. One is Listen to the Lion and the other is Ballerina from Astral Weeks. The first one is from St. Dominic's Preview, so I want to take that off. So what I want to talk about now is something I'm interested in because I think it follows from some of the recent YouTube videos, and I'm interested in it for many reasons, but it's about AI, mathematics, and the quiet erosion of democratic rights. And I think it's happening to so many people now that it's. I think we need to raise awareness about this issue. So, because of the mathematical side of it, I'm very interested in it to understand why it's happening to so many people. And so, let's talk about what's going on at the moment. Artificial intelligence is no longer just predicting outcomes; it is increasingly deciding them. So, who gets a loan? Who gets insurance? Who gets a job? Who gets housing? And these directions are not just technological; they're mathematical. At the core of every AI system is a simple idea. You are represented as a vector, so any information you give or you put on a form is put into a vector. Each component of this vector, if it's a finite dimensional vector, captures something about your life, your income, location, education, employment history, spending patterns, a number of other things, depending on what the questions ask. They're all going to a vector, so your life becomes a point in high dimensional vector space. So the vector is passed into a decision function, and the outcome then is based on some kind of a probability function. 1 equals approved, 0 equals rejected, or more generally, high risk versus low risk, eligible versus ineligible. This is the mathematical core of automated decision making. I mean, most people wouldn't know this at all. So let's look at the constraint function, which is the critical insight here. Anybody that studied calculus at advanced level would have studied constraint optimization, particularly Lagrange's method of multipliers, and this is all used here. But prediction is only one part of the story. What truly matters are constraints. So it's what cuts through that vector space and makes that decision. This defines a boundary, a threshold, a line that you must not cross. If your data falls outside this constraint, you're excluded. So the geometry of exclusion. So in geometric terms, each person is a point in a high dimensional vector space. The system draws boundaries according to the constraints. Only those inside the region are accepted. This creates what we might call decision regions of opportunity. And outside these regions, as you would expect, exclusion. Now, what's very concerning is what are called proxy variables and hidden bias. Even when so-called protective characteristics are removed, and the question is, are they complete? Is that a complete set of, in terms of what you might call protective characteristics? The system still use proxies, for example, postcodes, consumption patterns, career path. For example, you take career breaks, your mother working the home, or you have a gig time jobs, you're not permanently employed. All of these things are used against you. Mathematically, these variables remain embedded in the vector because they're not defined under the usual discrimination variables. So inequality it is reproduced through the structure of the space itself. So from mathematics to rights, here is the critical shift. These mathematical systems are no longer just technical tools. They are functioning as de facto allocations of rights. And this is where I'm very interested in this particular asset of them, because I'm very interested in linear algebra and all of this. But I'm very concerned about this because in practice, they determine access to housing, credit, employment, healthcare. I mean, that's a huge amount of rights to be determined by a mathematical system where only a small number of issues are considered protected, and then you have these proxy variables which essentially are inbuilt, if you like, inbuilt bias into the system, and we don't hear very much about it. So the democratic problem. Democracy depends then on three things, of course, which I'm always talking about: transparency and, in particular, accountability, the ability to challenge decisions. But how do you challenge a function you cannot see? A constraint you do not know exists? A boundary? I mean, how many of us know this mathematics? I know it, but I mean, how many people would have a PhD in linear algebra, for example, or a very high level of education in this level of mathematics? A boundary defined in high dimensional space. If you cannot understand the rule, you cannot contest the outcome. The legal problem. Courts are built around evidence, reasoning, explanation, but algorithmic systems introduce opaque models, proprietary data, statistical decision boundaries. This raises profound legal question. Is a constraint function a form of discrimination? Is opacity a denial of due process? Who bears the burden of proof? Can statistical exclusion violate fundamental rights? In my opinion, these are very serious questions. Why courts are not seeing many cases yet. So at present, there are relatively few court cases because a lot of these, are decided by big business, big corporations. And to take them on, you need a lot of money. And ordinary citizens don't have that kind of money. Not because the problem is small, because people often don't know AI is making the decision. Decisions are not explained. Legal standards are still evolving. Technical evidence is difficult to obtain. And I'm always saying we need to have joint degrees in law and mathematics, not law and English. It's mathematics and law we need, not law and English. It's much more. We need much more rigor in law, and we should have law and mathematics. So regulation is emerging, but very slowly. Systems are already deployed at super scale. This creates a dangerous imbalance. Mathematical power without democratic oversight. So closing, we are entering a world where opportunity is no longer negotiated. It is computed, defined by vectors, defined by constraints, enforced by huge, powerful computer systems. The question is no longer whether AI will shape society. It already is. The real question is who governs the mathematics of opportunity. And if we fail to answer that, we risk allowing invisible systems to quietly draw the boundaries of rights themselves. So I'm very interested in this.